Good morning. Hope you're not too jet lagged. I am. Well, thank you for inviting me back into this robotics community. I used to be one of you guys, and then I left, and I wasn't invited, and now I'm here. So today, I would love to talk about how to actually turn you guys into corporate explorer. And you might not know the term corporate explorer. That's okay. I will let you know as I go on. Very first time I show up to ICRA, which was a long time ago, I was told that I have to put an equation in my presentation or else I won't be showing off how smart I am. But I'm not going to have equations, so I apologize in advance. So today, we will be talking about your path. And for those of you who have been around for a long time in this field, you still have a little more to go. For those of you who are just beginning, and this might be the first time in this conference, we will be talking a lot about you today, too. Okay, so the green dot over there is when you're born. And as you have been going through your life so far, you've been following this green path all the way to the point that you're sitting here today in Yokohama. You had a lot of decision points in your life, which you could have gone to the black path, and then you chose to be on the green path. You may have closed some doors, which are in the black path, but you're on a pretty good path so far getting here. But to be here, you probably passed the point says, at some point in your life said, robots are pretty cool, and this is why you're here. And actually, I did too. So I was a tennis player. I wanted to become a professional tennis player all my life, and I couldn't become one. I was at UC Berkeley, and I realized that I wasn't going to be the best player in the world, and I had to pick something else that I like. And at that point, I said, robots are cool. I think I want to build a tennis buddy for myself who could play tennis with me. And that was the entry into my robotic research. At that point, of course, many of you have had decision points like this. Should I go and do a PhD? Should I go in industry? Same thing for me. But I said, you know what? I love building robots. I want to continue to build it, and then there's no better place than academia to do that. So I did. Left-hand side is a robot that I built. Actually, this is a much newer version of it from Ron's lab, but the Ron's lab page didn't go as old as when I used to be there, so I couldn't put the picture of my robot. But I used to build Lego robots at Berkeley. Then I moved to MIT to build COG, which is the humanoid robot. Loved doing this. But at MIT, as I started to put all kinds of, at that point, neural networks, most advanced ones into the robot, robots still didn't play tennis with me, and I was extremely frustrated. And I thought, well, what can I do? The MIT professor said, I am so sorry right now. The neural networks is not good enough to create a robot that can play tennis with you, but maybe you can go to neuroscience and study, and maybe understand human intelligence to bring it back to neuroscience, to neural networks. So that's what I ended up doing. Then I got super fascinated with human brains and people who are hurt from injuries or may have been born with some inability to function in daily lives. And I thought, oh my God, I've been studying robotics to build myself a tennis robot, but actually with all the things I've learned so far, what I want to do is to build something for them, to help them with daily lives. And that has become my passion, and actually continues to be my passion. This is what I said. I said, I want to build a robot to help lots of people feel healthier and happier every day. And you will see this throughout, and you actually even see my company's motto is this, and it hasn't changed. Well, once you have that goal, you're going to have to decide after you get a PhD and says, well, what can you do? What can I do to pursue that path? Academia, industry, startup, or even join a very high-revenue robotics company. Those are the choices that I thought about when I was getting out of school as well. Well, let me actually tell you and then embarrass myself a little bit of how things were like when I was getting out looking for a job. This is a picture from 2001. So 2001, when I was getting out and thinking about what to do, that's the phone that I was carrying. That's the first Apple store in 2001 that opened. iPod came out in 2001. Xbox also came out in 2001. It was a profound year. Oh, and then Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston got married in 2001 too. It was a good year. But this is the status when I got out, and I thought, okay, I want to build a robot that helps a lot of people. And what were the industries doing? Industries are building pretty cool robots. Of course, assembly robots, KUKA, and others are around. But I wanted to build something kind of like human-like, maybe bug-like, that could really help people. They were great, but they were still not helping people. And I thought, okay, I'm going to wait for a little bit to join industry and go to academia and see if I can start to build something cool. So that was my path. I became a professor, and I focused on rehabilitation and prosthetics, especially upper arms and hands. In rehabilitation, I focused on stroke rehabilitation with haptic feedback. And then for prosthetics, I built robotic arms and hands that can really do the finest manipulation possible that was not possible before in a robotics form. I also had an itch to work in industry, so I collaborated with companies on both rehabilitation and prosthetic side. And I wrote a lot of ICRA papers, like you guys. That's just 4 papers from 2004, and then there are a lot of papers out there that I could find. It's really cool. This is a picture that probably looks like many of your labs. That's how my lab looked like around 2007. And it was a good old time. Getting grants was fun. Tenure, chair, awards, all those were great. But I had this thing, the itch that I couldn't scratch. I really wanted to build a product for people. I wanted to help people now. I was short-sighted. I wanted to do this so badly. I thought, okay, can I do this while I'm in academia? And I looked at options, lots of options, right? There were lots of branch points in life. I could start a company on the side and keep my job, have students start a company, keep my job, or run my own company, quit my job, or join a company building product and quit my job. I wanted to do it myself, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna quit this job, and I'm gonna see what I can do. That's when I ran into a giant alarm sign by everybody around me and said, beep, beep. Academic people all said, don't do it, that's dangerous. You're gonna cross this road that you're never gonna come back. So you cannot cross it. You cannot go in and build products, and that'll be the end. And I thought, how dangerous could it really be? I don't know, so maybe I'm going to give it a try. So I did. I moved to Silicon Valley, moved all my kids, and then I moved over to Silicon Valley and then went to co-found Google X. It is a lab that works on moonshot project, looking 10 to 15 years down the line for a paradigm shift. And this is the picture from 2010 timeframe. So we built Google Glass. That was one of the first projects we started. Waymo, which used to be called Chauffeur, which was a great project as well. And Loon, which was to provide connectivities in remote places. And we started all of those. And they were fun, but they were very close to research still. And then I thought, that's still close to research. And that's when I ran into a robot company I call Nest. Nest was a company that ended up building smart thermostat, the IoT-connected thermostat. You might not think it's a robot company. For me, it had an input, sensors, output, and then I thought about what to do, and then it's a robot. So Nest was started by my student from Carnegie Mellon, Matt Rogers, and Tony Fadell, who is the godfather of iPod and an iPhone from Apple. They were starting this company in 2009 and thought that they could build an incredible thermostat that could save lots and lots of energy in 1 year. And I thought, wow, I don't know how to build a consumer product. I have to learn how to do it. So I got sucked in, and they showed me this thermostat that was available at that point. And hit all the company names, but basically there was a thermostat that was the most advanced one at that point, said it saves 33% of your energy if you use this. Then what they asked me is like, hey, Yoky, you're a scientist. You should be able to save like 40% using things like robotic technology and machine learning, right? And I thought, okay, all right. I mean, if other people can do 33%, I could probably do 40%. So that's how I started. Turns out to be pretty fun. I even started publishing in like environmental energy conferences. And I thought I got it. And then Tony kept yelling at me and said, Yoky, it's not a science project. And I kept saying, huh? What are you talking about? And he said, don't publish anymore. And I said, no, that's my life. That's how I do things. No, in order to build a product, you build something that people like to use. And I said, huh? So I kept doing it. So this is I made graphs, simulation all looked great. I was saving tons of energy from people's homes. I asked a whole bunch of users, and then users all said, yeah, I think I want to save energy like that. And that all sounded really good. So we went to the field trial in Texas that summer, actually. We built product so quickly. It's so fun, but so quickly. It was supposed to be launched in October for the winter season, but winter was gone, so we had to test it in the summer season in Texas in 85-degree weather. So this is how the Nest thermostat looks like for those of you who may not know. This is how it went. So outside is 85 degrees, and then the air conditioner is running at 76. People come in and says, oh, it's a little hot. Then my algorithm turned it off. Then people said, oh, it's terrible. Let's make it 70. No, I'm going to turn it off. Oh, no, it's really crazy. Like, I'm going to keep going. You can imagine, right? There's no 40% savings. Actually, on average, people increase the usage by 5%. So my algorithm did not work. Simulation, great. Humans involved, no. So I didn't like humans around then. But this is a picture of how I felt like at that point. I thought engineers and even psychologists and everybody's arguing, says, how could this happen? This cannot happen. And my head hurt, and I was actually 7 months pregnant, and everything else hurt too. And then I just, basically they locked me in a door and says, 2 months from now, we're shipping this product. I was shipping my baby too, and said, we're gonna make this happen. So we went to field trial again in Texas. Asked different questions to the user and said, what do you really want? Changed the algorithms to make it a little bit less academic. Then they tried it. They saved some energy, but they still didn't like it. So asked more questions. I changed the algorithms, and I said, as my academic inside going, seriously, come on. And then they tried it, and actually saved less energy, but they loved it. And tried with a whole lot more people, and then we figured out what to do. And that's what happened. So this is what we shipped in 2011, Nest Learning Thermostat. And it sold so well that we ended up just one device at a time, but we ended up saving so much energy that we could make claims like this. Enough energy to light the entire world for 13 days, or as much energy as 1,000 wind turbines would generate over 20 years. That's impact, and I was addicted. And that's when I understood this one-way road. I was having so much fun building consumer products that people could use right away. I learned how to make those things, and I couldn't go back, at least at that point. So this is the 2x2 chart that I'm going to use to explain for the rest of my talk about 3 things I want to talk to you about. But let me explain what this is first. Do I have a pointer? Ta-da, here we go. So the top is life in academia. Bottom is life in industry. This left-hand side is people doing research and publishing. And then the right-hand side is building products. For today's sake, I'm not going to talk about the top right. I'm going to talk about many of you who live in the academia and doing research and publishing and then showing up here and making presentations. Some of you are probably from the industry, so you're doing the same thing. You're presenting or you're scoping what other people are up to. And this is me. I used to be here, then I took this one-way road and then came over here building products, not publishing. But other boundaries are also interesting, especially around the time that I made this jump. Academia to industry, there's some flow, but it was still a one-way road. Not a ton of people from the industry moved up. Here, the moment you cross this research product boundary, you're done, right? I mentioned there's just like a way of thinking that made it very different. And this was also a big one-way road. So I'm going to be using this diagram to explain some concepts. And then for those of you who might not have understood what those quadrants were, just wanted to give you examples. Top left is like University of Southern California. The bottom left is like Microsoft research. My husband actually went from here to here as well to work for Microsoft research and never went back up here. And these are like Trader Joe's. That's a grocery store. You know, once you start working for Trader Joe's, you probably don't want them back, maybe. So this is where I live. And these are the interesting quadrants that I want to talk about. And specifically, I'll be talking about the boundaries of them. So 3 things I'm going to talk about. Let's see how I'm doing with time. Ooh, I'm doing okay. Okay, so for the rest of, hold on, make sure that's counting down instead of counting up. Yes, it's counting down. Okay, so for the rest of the time, let me actually tell you about 3 things using this diagram. So I hope that you memorize this diagram. There are 4 quadrants. And this line right here is the academic and then industry research boundary. I would like to talk about how that's evolving. Second part, I will be talking about this line, which is the evolution of academic industry research and product boundary. That's also changing. Then finally, the actual title of the talk, how to become a corporate explorer. So those are the things, and becoming a corporate explorer is currently this one-way road. So I'd like to talk about all of those today. Okay. I'll take questions later. Okay, let's see. Here we go. All right. Now, the evolution of academia and the industry research boundary. Again, reminder, this point right here. So, as you know, companies pay a little better than academia. This made it a little bit hard for academic people to keep people, but they give tenures and all kinds of good things, and then make sure that most people stay in the academic side. But somebody like me who broke the system a little bit came around, and then they were very much of a one-way, like, if you go there, I can't keep you, and I'm not going to give you anything, kind of thing made it very much of a one-way road for a little bit. However, since I left academia, many of you probably are doing this, right? You have one leg on one side, and then the other leg on the other side, or 1 day in academia, 4 days in industry, 2 days in all kinds of combinations, maybe sabbatical industry, and so forth. Those things, I have to be honest, those things have become a lot more frequent since I left academia, and that's only in the last 10 years or so. I think the world is changing pretty fast to say, like, you know what, this boundary cannot be fully respected and should not be respected. And you also feel this trend, and this might also be very much of a US trend, but government isn't paying up that much for research still. If you compare to, sorry if you're from the government, I think that 10 years ago and now, the money from NSF, NIH, and all those places aren't that much more, but many of you are probably starting to receive money from industry, and that's up more than 50%. So that line of money flowing from industry is becoming more common, and then you all should take advantage of it, and then now I'm sitting in industry, I get money asks all the time. And you guys probably also noticed too, now there are people, industry hot researchers are able and wanting to move to academia. This didn't happen before, but academia is doing something right, making it such a good environment that people from Meta, Google, moving to academia and doing great research. And this will continue. So what I used to have as a one-way road is now a two-way road. And then the last, and the hard one, right? So if you're sitting in academia, you're probably feeling this squeeze coming from generative AI. Generative AI competition cost is ridiculous, right? And it'll remain ridiculous for a little while. And academic people probably can't afford all of it, a lot of it. You will try, and you will beg the company president to give more money, but still, it's going to be really hard. So you're going to have to find, oops, sorry, back. Here we go. You're going to have to find ways to get money from the industry, and then also send people to industry. This boundary has to be kind of knocked down a little bit to make sure that academia side of amazing, cutting-edge researchers are able to utilize the money from the industry and then make this circle go around and around. So from now on, I bet in the next 5 years, that boundary is going to become fainter and fainter. People and money going back and forth, and as a matter of fact, you all should absolutely take advantage of that. So, as a conclusion of this section, I made this line a dotted line, very permeable surface. You should be able to go back and forth, money, people, all of that. Okay, so that's the first section. Now I'm going to talk about the next boundary, which is this line, the research and product line. This one's a little harder. So remember what I told you earlier about Tony Fadell, the godfather of iPod and iPhone. He did not like me when I was publishing papers, and he thought that I should really make sure to study the users and then really build something for consumers, even if the technology might not have been the most advanced that's conference paper worthy. That's what that line is about. Okay, so, sorry, this is very American for a second, but I was sitting here, and I used to, well, maybe here. And I used to think that people who are building product are like, don't get it. And I used to laugh at them. Like, like, yeah, well, that sounds great, but they don't really get it. I mean, research is where, the good things happen and smart people are at. But if you look at Chris Evans, Captain America, over here in the product land, he is laughing. And same thing actually happens from the product world. Right? Tony Fadell was laughing at me, saying, you researcher, you don't get it. You don't know how to make products in a way that people love to use all the time. So there's this disrespect line right here that goes across, and that's a hard one when they were secretly laughing at each other and trying to blur that boundary. But you know what? Things are happening. You know this. You guys probably, like so many of you, are in these areas. So within the last, actually maybe 30 years, 40 years, but just evolved to get to a point where autonomous driving is something that's not just in a research paper, but on the street, and everybody knows it. Your mom knows about it, right? This is something that has become almost like consumer usable, almost thing. And that has kind of warped this wall a little bit. There's this, what I call the wannabe mass adoption product, because it's not there yet. But level 4 driving, autonomous car, on the street, picking up people, all of that is starting to get the research people to get into making products. And that is an interesting, very interesting thing that's happening. Of course, then, generative AI is also happening. In my mind, this is, I sometimes call it the lab rat in mass audience. But basically, in order for this to improve more and more, the research project has to happen on the mass audience. That's exactly what's happening with ChatGPT in my mind. It makes a lot of mistakes. It lies a lot. And people don't understand what it's lying, or people don't even understand it's being lied, they're being lied to. But that's an experiment that's being run for the algorithms to get better. So, and then we can say that's not just a wannabe. That's actually mass adoption research product in play. People are paying for it. People are paying subscriptions for this, right? So that's officially a product, and that's making insane amount of money, right? Okay, so that has completely changed the landscape. And those things are absolutely needed. This is why you guys do this, right? In research, there are a lot of foundational research that's there, but as you get closer and closer to the application area, there's so many things that you can do that's mission-driven and change people's lives. With more autonomous cars, of course people die less. Of course it's going to be safer. People who can drive will be able to drive. There'll be less traffic congestions. There'll be less damage to the environment. And maybe you could be having meetings in a car. Maybe some people already have it, but safer. With generative AI, all the creative work, well, it's going to become even more creative. There's going to be a lot of creative assistant that's going to be there. Personalization, medical applications, a lot of disease, difficult things that couldn't have been solved, or solutions that require a lot of different iterations. Well, those things are going to get much, much faster in terms of the time to solve. Education tools and even simulations and modeling. There are a lot of things that generative AI can be used for. So this is very exciting. By the way, this list was generated by generative AI. Thank you. So they are really great and needed. But this is the hard part. People, mass audience, I wouldn't consider you guys to be the mass audience. You guys are really, really smart people gathered in this Yokohama place in a very special moment. But mass audience, as I'm working on a consumer product, to get their full understanding on technology and advanced technology and what it means and how they're supposed to use it is really, really hard. Oh, one great example, I recently learned that this is like the 50th anniversary of government starting to say that internationally that smoking is bad for you. Look how long it's taking for a mass audience to understand that, right? That's the people that we're going to be working with. Those are the people that you're going to have to build things for. And in that world, shit happens. Whoops, sorry. Bad things can happen where these robots that you build can do things that you didn't want it to do, but it happens. So there's some nasty pictures that I put here. And the most recent terrible one was Cruise, the company that accidentally, just very unfortunate, nobody died, but accidental things happened. And San Francisco City has removed the permit from their ability to drive. And then the mass media got excited. They actually had all kinds of crazy headlines to stroke fear in people about these crazy robots driving out there. So there will be a long, long way of communications, legal, and ethical challenges that these fields would have. And LLM is the same. And of course, everybody has used this, right? And then it understands that, why are they so magical? Because it's non-deterministic. But because of it, it's also frustrating. And the challenge specifically here is to convince those people who finally, in the last 50 years or so, got used to using technology, which is deterministic, usually doesn't make mistakes. That was almost the whole point of technology, to say, by the way, from now on, technologies will not be deterministic and will make mistakes, and don't trust it all the time, and then use your brain to understand whether you like it or not, is really, really hard to do. And very likely, there will be just somebody who would misunderstand how to use it, and it will say something terrible, and then the media would be very excited to talk about that. So me sitting in the product side, I feel this every single day. I am so worried about this, how to really educate the mass audience. And as they're feeling confused, I thought, what can I make sure that you know as you endeavor a little bit into the industry, a little bit into the product side, whatever you might do, what are the things that you all can do to help make sure that this goes in the right direction? And I thought about 3 things. So please don't hype with marketing. It's so easy to do. You can get more money, you can get more attention, but please help us all. Please help us by making sure that it doesn't get hyped, it doesn't get misunderstood, it doesn't end up in a bad headlines. Please make sure to do market and customer studies really well. Don't get just excited with technology and then run with it. Make sure that you understand who these people that you're serving to, and then do that. And finally, you might not first think about when you're building a startup or anything else to have communications and legal people, but you need them now. The world has gotten to a point where you need to figure out exactly how to communicate those things to people, and then how to make sure that it's legally protected and privacy is protected. So things have changed. Those things you have to worry about now as you move forward. Okay, so that was the second point that I wanted to make about the boundary between the research and the product. And the last part is the main part, or the not so main, but at least the third part of my talk, which is how to be the corporate explorer. Okay, so the part I talked about earlier, lots of permeability. This thing is getting bent over, and we gotta be careful. Now we will talk about this arrow of going from this academia or maybe industry research all the way to making products. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about, in the last 10 to 15 years, as I stopped publishing. Actually, it's really a 10-year anniversary of me stop publishing. Not to celebrate, I guess, but I noticed I just was Googling for myself, and I was trying to figure out when the last paper was, and it is 2014. And it's not that I published it. I think one of my students who's in academia now have kindly put my name for reviewing the paper for a little bit. So I think something like that. But anyway, so it's been 10 years since I published papers. And it turns out I've been writing a lot of patents, but they don't seem to count in me being to go back into the academia. So maybe we'll change that one day. But I wanted to actually tell you a little bit of my journey and why I'm choosing currently to be a corporate explorer. So I already told you about my Nest journey. Nest is a company that started in 2009, shipped the product in 2011, and got acquired by Google in 2014 for $3.2 billion. And when it was acquired, we said, hands off, Google. We're going to stay outside. Don't touch us. We're going to be separate. And they said, OK, we could do that. So we felt like we were part of Google. We could take advantage of this incredible Google power and the Google reach, but we stayed outside. But then Alphabet happened. Then we became one of the Alphabets. And eventually actually gets sucked into becoming one of the business units inside Google. So I've gone through that journey of what it means to be part of a large company as an outsider, insider, Alphabet, and so forth. I've also experienced being a CEO of a healthcare company building vital tracking with the wearable devices, including continuous continuous blood pressure monitoring. As you can see, the watches you're wearing don't have that capabilities. It's hard to do. But we had an exit for this company, and I ended up at Apple running a health team, trying to figure out, really this was at a relatively early stage in the Apple Watch, trying to figure out how to make sure that it can take care of you. Many of the features now you have about the cardiovascular health or fall detection, those are very fun to work on. Then I went back to Google, logo changed, but I went back to Google for the third time. And this time I ran a business unit inside Google, given multi-billion-dollar projects and lots of people to do product and services to build some health products from Google. And so different experiences even inside of Google of being outside company to being part of the big ecosystem of Google running a business. And then I was also a board member of HP. So as you can see, I swam around a little bit in the industry trying to figure out how to create innovative products in different structures within companies. One of the things that I really felt when I was at a startup, like Nest and Qantas, was that it was really fun every day. It was just completely on our own. Like if we do something bad, it's our fault. We could run as fast as we wanted. The process was all up to us. And nobody really came to bother us except for VCs. And when you're in a large company, there's this mass reach, which small startup can't get and small startups should not go for. But there's a reach that small startups can't have. And that's fun on its own, right? But it's also you walk at the pace of a large company. Certain things you want to do, they say, wait. There's some geopolitical issues, wait. There's some Apple friction, wait, right? Like lots of things happen within a large company, which made it something that was not in my control that happened all the time, and it was frustrating too. So as I was exploring all these options, I wanted to create almost like the best place, best landing spot for myself to use the innovative brain to create product. And people who come from the research side are very innovative, the innovative brain, and then how can you use it to use product is actually turned out to be a hard thing to think about. But as I mentioned, startup is probably one of the first things that you think about. You might think about creating a pitch. You might think about going to VCs. That's certainly one way to go. And as I said, that's potentially going to give you a lot of options and the freedom. However, let me actually give you 3 big company options as well. I crossed out the first one because joining a research group is not that bottom right quadrant. It's the left quadrant. So I scratched it off for the sake. But you can join an existing product group, right? And a group and then figure out how to build a product with everybody else. but I bet you will have a lot of fun creating an innovation product organization that is unrelated possibly to the main product that the company is working on. One example could be something like Google X, right? Like Google has search and ads, and that's the main product. Meanwhile, Google X is working on a self-driving car. That's unrelated. Yet it can be funded by a large company as an innovation product organization. So that concept is called corporate explorer. Corporate explorers are the ones who create these innovative organizations that's not directly related to the current main product that the company is known for. And I'm going to, from here on, talk about corporate explorer. Corporate explorer didn't exist, or at least the term didn't exist in 2011. As a matter of fact, a lot of people wanted to innovate from large companies because it has a lot of money. There must be a way, and then the large companies have to innovate, right? So there's a book that came out. This is a very famous book, The Innovator's Dilemma. Probably many of you have read this. But this book specifically pointed out how hard it is to innovate in a large company. As a matter of fact, large company, those people, the best managers who make large company to work so well and continue to grow in the revenue, their traits are exactly the things that would kill disruptive innovation, which is really interesting. But I'm experiencing it every day, so I know that is really true. And this guy really saw it through and wrote the book. And I just love reading this book because it's all true. So another thing that happens is in a large company, once the established market is there and you're making billions of revenue, you can actually have disruptive technology be the beachhead of many of the products that you build. When you're starting from scratch, you cannot have the tech-led. You have to have the market-led way of entering. That's another thing that the innovation dilemma talks about. So this book basically said, guys, it's really hard to innovate in a large company. This is 2011. Sorry, lots of words. I went for the high context for these slides for some reason. So, but by 2015, Professor Charles O'Reilly from Stanford has actually said, you know what? You can actually innovate from large companies, and there are lots of case studies that could be done in large companies that have changed, innovated, and changed its shape. Some examples that you might know of, Sony. Sony used to make Walkman. Now they're a movie company. Apple, they make now 24% or so of their revenue from services, not from just hardware. So there are ways to innovate from inside. And he and Michael have done a lot of case studies for this book. And they specifically talk about the secret. They say the only way to succeed, and I have lots of examples, but is to create this entirely separate organization called the ambidextrous organization. It's like left hand and right hand. Right hand is giant and can do all the current businesses and make optimization of the business. Left hand is a little bit smaller, but it's going to be left alone. They can collaborate, but they cannot be built together. And so that's a very, very important concept called ambidextrous organization that he has introduced in this book. Then, by the time 22 came over, there is a book called Corporate Explorer. Charles was also part of this endeavor, but Andrew Bin, he really led this, and he's made a lot of studies. By the way, I emailed those people and said, please help me, I'm doing this, and it's really hard, what do I do? So I've been talking to a lot of these folks to just making sure that I'm learning, and I'm not failing doing this on an everyday basis. So, but he has found a lot of really awesome cases where he's starting to find that actually Corporate Explorer may be the way to go more than startups these days, as large industry getting even more money, large industries needing more transformation than ever before. Now they're starting to pump in, and they're starting to figure out how to do this thanks to all those authors who are writing these books, right? So it is starting to change the field a little bit. That's why I wanted to give you guys a talk about Corporate Explorer. So I wrote down 6 points of how you guys, if you decide to become a Corporate Explorer, some of the key things and strategies that you could do as a roboticist. There's some of them I pulled out of the book, but some of them I'm writing from the experience knowing who you are as a roboticist. So I'll make sure that I go through this quick enough. Hold on, make sure. Okay, so first, identify market landscape. I said this earlier, but don't let your awesome technology lead the way. Don't say, I have this cool technology, what can I do with it? You have to say, this is a needed market. This is the current advantage. This is gonna be disruptive in the market space. Then say, and this technology fits in. Or how can I actually have technology to go with it? That's a really important first point. Second thing is about going around and pitching you as the lead for the future corporate explorer. I'll get to that in a little bit, but a lot of companies are looking for this. I've gone through and did this pitch to many, many companies, and they all want roboticists to start something within their company. So don't be shy. If you actually think that there might be something that's really exciting, then you should start approaching them. Maybe we can talk later. You should also read some books to create the right organization and process. Seems boring for people who are doing probably research in robotics, but these things really matter. And you might accidentally inherit a large team from a corporate. And if you keep it hierarchical or process-oriented, it's not going to work. So that's something that you're going to have to really do right. Unconditional leader support. You're going to have to fight like hell to report to the CEO or somebody equivalent in the company and make sure that person loves you no matter how bad you might be one day. So that's a very important part because it's not going to be easy doing this. You're going to fail, and that's the point. You're going to have to fail multiple times, and you're going to have to tell them that you plan on failing multiple times, but you're going to get up and keep running, and then you're going to eventually become successful. And all those companies are not used to failing. So the moment you say that, and if they feel like, yeah, I'm not sure if I can do that, then just leave that place right away and find another home. But you got to have that unconditional love. I didn't say love, leader support. Also, keep that distance from the main product. As I mentioned, ambidextrous organization. If you actually get too close, because it's really tempting, they have really cool stuff, so you get closer, then you'll get sucked right in because they all have needs in their area based on what you do. So you're going to have to stay away. You're going to have to keep the process separate. You're going to have to keep the people separate. And they even recommend in a book, make sure the building's not even in the same location to make sure that you can continue to innovate in the right way. Finally, make sure to hire an execution-driven team. Researchers tend to be really good with ideas, but sometimes don't know how to follow through to the end to make sure that this product works and the tedious last parts to make it work. You're going to need those people on your team. So make sure to hire those people to make this successful. So this is my Bible. This is what I actually use for myself, too, every day to be a corporate explorer. So I wanted to spend the last several minutes to actually tell you what I'm doing right now, and then as a corporate explorer as well. I'm part of Panasonic in this country, Japan. And I never really thought that I'd work for Panasonic, to be honest. But as I was deciding to be a corporate explorer and starting to shop for or pitch into different companies to be a corporate explorer, to do what I wanted to do, which is to create products to keep people healthier and happier every day, I found the company with the founder who started the company with the same motto. This guy started this company about 105 years ago now, and he has nonprofits on the side, each product. Even he said he built the washing machine and the dryer so that women around then, 1950s, can have extra time to do whatever they wanted, right? That's the kind of DNA that this company has, and I thought, oh my God, I want to try this company. I got all the checkpoints, right? Like, I pitched it, they're going to give me what I want. I had this unconditional support from the leadership, so forth, so I started working for them. Also, it was like a candy store for somebody who came from Nest. Has incredible coverage in people's homes. And they build a whole home. It's so fun. So I got this hardware company that I could one day take advantage of. And then I thought, well, I need to build this group that's going to really spend time working on the software solutions, innovation, so that one day it could hold hands, left and right hands, to work on something amazing. 1 + 1 is 3. It's the equation, is what I thought I wanted to do. So And I made sure that my organization is hanging off the CEO but directly onto the holdings, while other multi-billion-dollar companies are hanging off as well separately. I'm not hanging off from any of the other ones, but making sure that it is rooted at the top leadership to have the absolute protection. My group is called Panasonic Well, for wellness and well-being. And our mission is to build and partner and expand an ecosystem of disruptive businesses to enable people to be healthier every day. So we're spinning off companies. We are creating companies. We are buying companies. And we're partnering with companies. And we build technology platform that enables those disruptive businesses to accelerate. And that's for ourselves, our partners, and then also Panasonic, but also for third parties. And finally, we're also making sure that there are bits and pieces that we have developed along the way that can already help Panasonic employees to learn how to build disruptive solutions. So we spend a lot of time, we call it dojo, and we train people. This group of people sometimes come to the US and train in our group. Sometimes we send people to train. As a matter of fact, this week there's some of our engineers are here training Panasonic employees. So we're doing all of that. As part of Panasonic Well, one of the businesses that we have is called Yohana. And Yohana is a family concierge service, specifically helping very busy families to be able to manage every day. This is a monthly subscription service. And we made sure that everybody said, I can't live without this. Then we launched in Seattle first. Then we launched in 50 states in the US. Then we launched in Japan, actually Yokohama first, yay, and Kanagawa, then Tokyo. And actually today, we're launching to the whole country of Japan. I have some media events later today to do that. So today's a pretty special day for us. But we're keeping expanding as a startup-like group, ambidextrous organization inside a large company. We can do that. We can actually start small, not like the Panasonic scale from the beginning. But we start with Seattle. We start with Yokohama. Then we keep expanding. We keep checking the customers are happy, and then we keep adjusting and then do all of that. So, I included that announcement. Sorry, this is for Japanese audience, we're going nationwide. So Yohana's going to be in the whole country. We're going to be available as of June 12th. So anyway, I'm glad that I got that slide in. All right, so last few slides. This may be the word conclusions for most people, but I just decided to put last few slides. Okay, so today's conversation was about this 2x2. Specifically, really wanted to talk about these boundaries, getting more permeable, getting bent, and how to potentially get through to this one-way road. It is really interesting as those boundaries are getting blurred and more money is required to do innovation. The trend is changing out there pretty fast. You might have seen this, but VCs are quickly changing the way they fund companies, robotic companies especially. This trend has become, I would say, maybe even out of control, but super exciting. Robotic companies are now valued at billions of dollars, even if they've been around for only 6 months. So things are happening here. It's getting sticky and exciting. As I mentioned, corporations are looking. They are absolutely looking for you to help them innovate and utilize their platform and build this ambidextrous organization to make the world change into a better place. So no wonder there are 6,000 of you here now. There's never been a better time to be a roboticist. But you know what? You feel this too. I'm super scared too that we live in a bubble. So I want you to also feel extremely responsible for how you're going to unfold this together, all together. So I hope this landscape change will continue. One of the things I'm aiming for is for me to maybe walk back here someday. So if you have a job for somebody like me to cross one day, do let me know. Not right away, in a little bit. And for you, you're here today, and we talked about this path so far, but you got this ahead of you. Many, many choices you can make, and even if you choose one way, for me, when I crossed that one-way bridge, everybody said, don't go, it's a one-way thing. But for you, it's changing, right? Industry, product, all those lines are getting blurred. Incredible chance for you to do and try and then really dedicate yourself to different things for a little while and still be able to have all those options in front of you. So thanks for letting me come back to this conference to have this very unusual talk. You will be able to go back to listening to equations and a much more technical talk after my talk. But hopefully this was a great wake-up event in the morning in Yokohama, and thank you so much.